For my science biography project, I did Jonas Salk, creator of the polio vaccine. Jonas Salk was born October 28, 1914. Jonas's mother pushed him to his potential during his early childhood and throughout his high school years. His family moved to the Bronx, where he began elementary school at an early age. His parents, Dora and Daniel Salk, were afraid for their son due to the polio epidemic occurring in New York City at the time. Salk was accepted at Townsend High School, which was a public school that you had to apply for. This was a school for the more intellectual students of New York. During high school, Salk only took physics because his friends were taking it, and was interested in history and poetry. He graduated from Townsend in 1929 at the age of 14. He attended the City College of New York before moving on to medical school. He planned to become a lawyer, but changed his mind when he heard about Franklin Delano Roosevelt's battle with polio. He entered the New York University of Medicine. His parents used a loan and Jonas's job money for the summer to pay for school. Salk took his second year of medical school off and was given a fellowship to study biochemistry. He returned the following year to medical school and continued his education. Salk learned about many different medical procedures and terms, including inoculation, antibodies, vaccination, and how viruses grow and spread during this term. Medical students were allowed 2 months in an internship or position that interested them before they graduated. Salk applied to go to the Rockefeller Institute to study biochemistry, but he wasn't accepted. In the end, Salk worked with Dr. Thomas Francis, who researched viruses, specifically influenza. Salk then graduated and married Donna Lindsay the day after he graduated from medical school. Salk received a $100 a month grant from the Rockefeller Institute for research. He applied for an internship at the Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. 250 people applied, but only 12 got in, and one was Salk. He spent hours treating patients and lecturing, which added on to the additional research that he did during the night in his lab. He continued the internship at Mount Sinai for 2 more years before he moved out to Michigan. World War II had begun. No one would hire Salk because he was Jewish. He wrote to Dr. Francis about the situation. Dr. Francis accepted him as his assistant at the Michigan State Virology Lab. He began working immediately on the influenza virus at Michigan State. Due to the influenza epidemic amongst soldiers fighting in the war in cramped barracks, this was a necessary vaccine. He and Francis discovered a vaccine for influenza and helped reduce the number of flu victims. Salk was offered the chance to have his own lab at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. The move occurred due to the offer of Salk's own lab. He was offered the chance to work with the polio virus by Weaver, one of his executives. Many other doctors had invented vaccines that had terrible results and killed many of the people that the vaccine was injected into. Many families were scared of polio because it tended to spread in hot, crowded places, especially amongst children. More affluent families tended to send their children to the countryside for summers. Children were also banned from public areas such as libraries in larger cities. Polio is a virus, which means it infects cells and then destroys them. Polio could enter you via the mouth or nose by touching an infected surface, drinking infected fluids, or being sneezed on by an infected being. Salk needed to know more about the different types of polio. He injected monkeys with one different type of polio, and then he injected them with the same type to see if it had antibodies to fight it. After that, if it did not get polio, he would inject them with a different strain to see if the same antibodies could fight off a different strain of polio. These were the type of tests that Salk had to use to figure out that there were 3 different strains of polio. He thought at first it would be more effective if he used a dead polio strain rather than a weaker yet alive polio strain. Many scientists, including Dr. Albert Sabin, disagreed with using dead virus strains and believed in using the weaker ones. Sabin thought of himself a rival to Salk and continued his work on also making a vaccine. Salk began by killing the 3 different strains of polio and combining them in different ways, and then would inject them into a healthy monkey and wait to see the results. He went through approximately 17,000 monkeys through the course of trial and error. Salk would wait and observe the test results of the monkeys to see the effectiveness of each combination. Salk began secret human trials at the Polk State School, a home for the mentally retarded, and the Watson's home for the disabled. He tested on children that already had polio at the Watson home to see if more antibodies were created. The second was a larger scale test at the Polk State School, where he injected people who had never had polio. This meant people were at risk to actually get polio from his vaccine. Test results proved that the vaccine produced antibodies in people who had never had polio. A large-scale test was proposed where the vaccine would be tested nationally. Knowing his labs could not produce enough vaccine, Salk made contracts with several different drug companies. The vaccine was shipped nationally, and half were given a placebo and the other half the vaccine. The vaccine was shipped around the country, and all Americans were vaccinated after Dr. Francis analyzed the data and discovered that the vaccine proved to help create more antibodies. In Salk's post-polio career, he was recognized as the cure for polio. Many people thanked and congratulated Salk over the vaccine. He appeared on many television shows and was bombarded with interviews and received bags of mail. He gave over 80 speeches in the year following the discovery. Salk received an award for helping the country from President Eisenhower at the White House. The Russian scientist Dr. Sabin, however, had also been working on a vaccine during these years, and inventing a vaccine using live polio strains. This vaccine was more cost-effective and was taken like a cough syrup. Sabin's vaccine replaced Salk's vaccine in most of America, but Salk was acknowledged as a national hero and considered the creator of the polio vaccine. Salk spent his later years at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies, which was founded near San Diego. Here, Salk studied HIV and AIDS due to the rise of these new diseases. Salk also began studies on cancerous cells and the spread of cancer. Jonas Salk died on June 3, 1995, from congestive heart failure. And that is my science project.